evening, Happy New Year, and welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce 2023. I'm Gary Graves from Louisville, Kentucky, and just outside Washington, D.C. is my good friend and esteemed colleague, John Webster. John, Happy New Year to you, my friend. How you doing?
Gary, happy New Year to you, man. Hope you had a great New Year. Hope you were able to eat all your special foods that we have for New Year's. John Pitt, happy New Year to you as well, my friend.
Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah. Well, we got another jam-packed edition. Several bowl games today. A whole bunch of football, a whole bunch of NFL yesterday, and then the college football playoffs on Saturday. I tell you, those two games were something else. John Webster, I tell you, I have to tip your cap to your boy, Coach Kaki. They came up short, but that was one heck of a game. And then, of course, Ohio State and Georgia really, did it one better, with another nail biter ending. And I guess we'll just go ahead and start with that. We have it set for a week from today. Number 1, Georgia versus number 3, TCU. Both of them won barn burner games. And John, I'll tell you, if I look at it from the loser standpoint, that play calling and clock management is what cost Michigan and Ohio State in those games when you have a chance to, for winnable games, especially Michigan. I mean, Ohio State, to me, they just didn't call the right plays and just, turning loose their quarterback who couldn't be stopped. I mean, CJ Stroud would just seem to have his way, with his arm and with his legs, but that's not who they used in the clutch when they needed him. And I think it put them in a very desperate situation for a 50-yard field goal that really missed badly. Am I calling it wrong on that one? Am I missing something?
You called it right. He missed that field goal badly. You called
Yeah.
that right.
But I think the kicker was put in a very difficult position. I don't think icing him really made a difference. I think he was just put in a position to make an impossible field goal to win that game. Yes, he might have had the foot, but again, there's something about trying to get your kicker as close as possible to make it easy for him.
I see where you're coming from, Gary. I think Ohio State, one, I can see some play calling. On that last drive, they called a running play that I didn't understand why they called running plays. But I also I'll put this out to you as well. When Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt, that changed their whole scheme.
Yeah.
And that took away some of what they wanted to do passing. And it really was evident on that last drive, because what I saw Ohio State doing that last drive was basically almost play not to lose. They weren't playing to win, in my opinion, on the last drive. Now, the field goal kicker, my honest opinion, I looked at him when they were getting ready to kick. He was done then, in my opinion. I didn't think he had a chance of making that field goal. That's just my opinion. I know it was maybe 49 or 50, but he had just kicked, a 48-yarder earlier? So,
yeah.
And it's one thing, Gary, to miss. That happens. That was a complete knuckleball that never had a chance to get anywhere near a goalpost. It just fluttered to the left, and nobody hit it. It didn't bounce off anybody's helmet. And it was a good snap and a good hold. It was. It just wasn't.
I don't like the field position on that, even though, like I say, he's capable of, he showed he was capable of hitting from that distance. But I feel like, a couple of those plays, like you said, a running play, maybe, setting Stroud loose earlier in that possession or something to try to get them closer. There was something where, again, you've got playmakers. Okay, you were down your major playmaker, but you have a quarterback who really can extend plays. He could have run around to get somebody open. He could have run for a first down himself. There was just something, I don't know, either they didn't see with Georgia's defense, and again, I'm going to credit Georgia's defense for coming up big in that and limiting their options. So
They
that's
put a lot of
that speaks to it.
they put a lot of pressure on him. But when he picked up the first down the first time, he ran about 30 yards. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they were on to something. I thought they were going to matriculate down the field, and they just
There's
got
that word again.
yeah. I love Hank Graham, but they just got stuck right there. And like I said, after they, if I'm not mistaken, after he ran 30 yards, the next play they called was a running back straight up the middle.
Yeah,
And
again,
I didn't,
it's
I didn't understand that. I
yeah, I
didn't
didn't
understand
understand
it at
that
all.
either, and that's why I say, I go to clock management on something like, okay, the clock's going to stop with the first down, but we are with that one where yeah, I forgot how many yards it gained, but I always think at that point you try to go to the sidelines, either with a run or a pass or something to try to stop the clock. I mean, the biggest thing is that they could have given themselves a chance with more time for maybe one more play to get just a little bit closer for the kicker. And again, yeah, it was really a bad kick, but I'm not going to really put that on the kicker. It's like, and I'm not one that some people are piling on a 20-year-old, for missing a kick. That happens. That happens in those situations, and again, these are kids. It's because of the adults that are calling the plays for them that they have to make it easier for them, in a to a great extent. That's one. Again, I think that goes to Ryan Day's or the offensive coordinators play calling. And it seemed like they were just kind of drawing it up as they went along. And what's that word? A jailbreak. That's what it kind of looked like on a couple of those plays. But after the big play, the 30-yard gain, that there were just a couple of head scratches, and I think that's what cost them, because again it became a desperation kick at that moment. And even I think if he had gotten a chance to get off maybe a practice kick, you know how it goes after they when they try to ice the kicker. If he had had maybe a chance like that, if they could have snapped the ball quicker, I think he would have gotten it out of his system. But they made him think, and it worked.
Yeah. Hats off to Georgia.
Hmm.
They came and pulled it out down by 14 going into the fourth quarter and still found a way to suck it up and get the win. And
Yeah,
that now on the other side, that Michigan TCU game was another barn burner.
yeah,
And I'll say this. Yes, Coach Cack, I give them a lot of credit. I'll give them credit. They hang in there. They came back second half, losing 21-6. The defense couldn't stop anything. And the other thing the TCU did, they out Michigan.
hmm,
What do I mean by that? They were the more physical team. They ran the ball well, and they were hitting on every play. Michigan receivers and running backs, you felt it with those TCU defenders. You felt it. Pitt mentioned before the show about the pick sixes. Yeah, the pick sixes hurt, but it doesn't help when you fumble on the 1 yard line. That doesn't help either. And it also doesn't help that you can't get your offense going in the first half. It was what, 21-6 at halftime? You
yeah,
know, come on.
yeah.
In the second half, if they had played the first half the way they played the second half, they win the game. They win
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah. The thing, and again, I go to clock management. I think when TCU had the ball and Michigan, I think, still had all of their timeouts, where I thought, I really thought that they could get the ball back one more time, but they waited until there was like less than 90 seconds left to start calling him. But all it took at that point was just really one more first down to get it done. And I just thought that's when you use the timeouts. You save them for them to try to slow it down, try to get the ball back one more time, and put yourself in a position to again take a couple of shots for the end zone. That's the part that mystified me from Michigan's standpoint. But to your point about TCU, like you said, they out Michigan. They played smash mouth football. They played finesse football. Max Duggan, I'm telling you, he might be probably the most resourceful quarterback this side of Stetson Bennett. And I think it does set up for a great title game next week against, two guys really, you can call them overachievers if you want to. That's the word that I heard bandied about a lot on Saturday. But I really think you're talking about two resourceful guys, two guys that I think we don't know what their true tools are, but one thing is they know how to get the job done. They know how to manage things. They know their limitations and they know what their strengths are, and they really play to their strengths and didn't exceed their limitations. So yeah, I think it's going to set up great for next week. Here's my concern, and it's mostly for Georgia. That defense, which was stingy. They were facing an Ohio State team, I think, that had a crisis in confidence after just getting, really beaten by Michigan in the second half at home before the Big Ten title game, and they just gave up a ton of yards and a ton of points to an Ohio State team that I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, to Ohio State team that I really didn't expect. That one kind of concerns me because TCU really can light up the scoreboard. I don't want to compare them to Tennessee in terms of how quickly they move and really how I'll say how potent they are because again Tennessee was an offense built on quickness and they shut that down, but they cannot afford to let that happen next week because I think again we could be looking at a team of destiny in TCU because they took it to a team that I didn't expect them to. They were the aggressors, John. They forced Michigan to have to play from behind for much of that game, and they held on at the end. And I think that's something that kind of momentum against the team that I thought was really capable of beating Georgia if they had got a chance to face them. But they beat the team that everybody thought would face Georgia.
Gary, I'm going to say this to you now. I know you and Dante laughed at me last week when I said Ohio State was going to be right there with them. Could have won, should have won.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give you another chance to laugh at me now. TCU beats Georgia next Monday night.
I have no reason to disagree with that because, again,
doggone it, Gary, come on.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to take Georgia in that game only because it's again you got to beat the best to be the best, and Georgia's just they got to turn it around on defense. They really have their job cut out for them and shutting down both facets of that offense because that's a very dangerous offense that Sonny Dykes has down there, and again. Max Duggan is just a quarterback who gets it done. There is no defeat in that guy. And again, when you think about it, let's go back to the Big 12 championship game. That in essence, they probably, well, with that replay, my personal opinion, I still think that he scored. I still think he broke the plane. The running back broke the plane before that, whatever, that was ruled a fumble. And that really, kind of changed that game. They lost in overtime of a shootout. This time they basically won a shootout and they have the potential to turn it into a shootout next week, or they have the potential to really, knock Georgia back on its heels and force Bennett to try to make it a shootout. Again, that's where Georgia's defense, which in some ways, John, despite all that talent that they lost to the NFL from last year, in some ways has found a way to be a better defense, to be even stingier than last year. They didn't show it on Saturday. That's what they have to get back to a week from tonight if they want to repeat as national champions.
I think it'll be a track meet, Gary. I think the last team to have the ball wins the game. And I think TCU pulls it out. I really think we're going to go at another high-scoring game. I don't see 17-13. I don't think Georgia can stop TCU, and I do not think TCU can stop Georgia. But it's going to come down to who gets the last score, and I think it's TCU.
Yeah. Again, I don't see a reason in theory to disagree with you, but again, I'm going to pick Georgia because again, Georgia's been on that stage, TCU hasn't. And Georgia, I think, really proved itself last year in big moments when they beat the team that had been their nemesis in many ways. And having that confidence, having a quarterback that got it done against a excellent defense, I think Stetson Bennett can get it done again. But again, it really comes down to that defense in limiting not just limiting fields, but just really creating field position for the offense. Again, for all the talk about how many points they allow, this is going to be a field position game. And the one thing that defense can't afford to do is allow TCU to take advantage of good field position. The offense has to do its part put points on the board. They've got to pin them back. They've got to make them drive a long way because that is one dangerous offense. The Horned Frogs really have a package there, and the pressure really is on the Bulldogs defense.
Totally agree. I can't wait till next Monday night.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing. We saw the news today that Bryce Young is declared for the NFL draft. What do you think that does for him? What do you think about his chances? And oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the defender too. Anderson. Yeah, he declared as well. So you're talking about, I think it's three Alabama players that have declared for the draft. So, but where do you think Bryce Young really fits in the draft picture now? Because I'm not surprised that he declared, but so much attention has gone to some other quarterbacks, including one here in Kentucky and Will Levis. But Bryce Young, I think, really kind of changes the landscape, don't you think?
Yeah, I think he'll go in the top 10. There'll be some teams in the top 10, in the second 10, that will be looking for a quarterback. And I think
Washington, excuse me.
yeah, I think, you know, I think he'll go in the top 10, if not the top 5. So we'll see. But you have a nice segue into quarterbacks and the Washington Commanders and what happened with them yesterday. Um,
All I know is what I've read, John. I haven't seen any replays, but all I need to do is go on social media to tell whether it's bad or good for Washington based on the quarterback play. And well, let's just say I'm not surprised.
Carson Wentz had a quarterback rating yesterday of 31. With that being said, and I've been saying it, and I've been saying it, and I'll say it again. The best chance for them to win was Taylor Heineke.
Okay.
Uh,
John, I was a little concerned about where you were going with that.
what did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say, but I still believe in Carson Wentz.
No, I've never believed in Carson Wentz.
Okay, again,
No,
that was a head scratcher decision by Rivera to start him because I understand about that old adage about you don't lose your job by injury in the NFL, which I think we learned long ago with Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady that that's not true, and maybe it shouldn't be true because again, you go with a hot hand. I understand in some respects why he went back to Carson Wentz because Taylor Heineke had lost his last 3 starts and maybe the offense was regressing. But in a game like that, a winnable game coming in, that to take the ball out of his hands and put it in a guy's hands who really had struggled before the injury and depend on him to save your playoff chances because I mean I know right now they're still in contention, but they really took a big hit. Next week, I mean they've got to beat Dallas if they're going to get into the playoffs, they've got to beat Dallas. And
well,
I don't see that happening.
Gary, let me update you just so you know. the Washington Commanders are
Uh-oh.
eliminated. They have no chance at the playoffs. They were officially eliminated
Oh, okay.
last
Okay.
night at 6:54 when the Green Bay Packers finished destroying the Minnesota Vikings.
Which was another surprise, but
And
maybe
in a way,
no.
I'm glad it take me out of my misery. Just take
Okay.
me out of my misery.
Okay.
They're not there. They don't need to be there. Some of the stuff that went on
I mean,
yesterday,
they are officially eliminated, right?
they are officially eliminated.
Okay.
All
So
capital letters.
okay. All
They
right.
they first series, third play of the game. Carson Wentz throws an out pass to Terry McLaurin. I give him credit. He's trying to find McLaurin, who he's never found the whole season. Just he looked at him the whole time, and the whole defense of the Cleveland Browns knew who he was throwing to. So what happened? Interception.
Mm-hmm.
They had 4th and 1. The running back that's been doing the most damage has been Brian Robinson. Am I right or wrong?
No, no, you're right. You're right.
Okay. You have 4th and 1. Robinson's going back in the game, and you pull him out to put the young kid Williams in there to run
Mm-hmm.
it for 4th and 1. They don't even go up in there. They run like a little sweep. He gets tackled in the backfield. Now, that right there changed momentum. Then Carson Wentz throws another pass 30 yards down the field into double coverage, intercepted. Then he throws a 40-yard pass into the end zone, intercepted, double coverage. I mean, he had one pass, he was throwing a little flare pass to the running back, and he threw it at his feet. There was nobody there. He threw it to his feet. I mean, come on. The defense played, now, the second half, I mean, the Browns found their rhythm. They got the ball to Amari Cooper for 2 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson started throwing some better passes. But the first half, the game was right there for Washington to gain control, and they did
Mm-hmm.
not gain control.
Yeah. John, I've thought for years, and in a nod to our boy Ken Beatrice about success and failure starting at the top, that remains true. I mean, it's remained true probably even before he said it. And I look at the NFL and I look at 32 teams and I see 8 to maybe 10 who are really committed to winning and getting the best people in place to win games for them and try to win a championship. Of course, we know the Washington Commanders are not that team. And I was going to say the Baltimore Ravens were that team, but they're not right now without Lamar Jackson, and that's a whole other story to discuss about his future. But John, if nothing else, that you all have seen in Washington and what I read about from a distance is that your quarterback play makes a big difference, and not having a solid quarterback in any aspect, John, and for all of the love for Taylor Heineke, that he is a guy, again, who is resourceful. He gets the job done, but you're at a point now, you need a playmaker. He's not a playmaker. But I think at people were willing to accept that because of the bottom line. And that part I understand. But at some point, you got to have somebody who you can believe can get it done week in, week out. Case in point, and I know this is an easy choice because we're talking about the so-called GOAT here. But the Tampa Bay game was on here yesterday, and even when they were trailing in the fourth quarter, and I want to say it was something like, I want to say it was like maybe 16-7 or something like that. And Tampa Bay was just kind of, they were like a car stuck in the mud. But they got to the fourth quarter. Tom Brady just did what Tom Brady does, and they won that game. And Again, I wasn't surprised by that because, again, he has done that so many times in his career. But that's the whole difference that even at 45, 46 years old, here's a guy that can still get it done. He reminds me, John, of another old guy later in his career, George Blanda, who could still kick, who was still an effective kicker and punter. Um, and Brady, again, remember all the talk about when he went to Tampa Bay, can he win without Belichick? Can he win in a different system? We learned about that the first year when he won the Super Bowl. We saw what he could do the second year, even though it ended with a playoff loss. Now we're seeing a guy who, again, that's not a very good team. That team has regressed because of injury, attrition, all of those things, and really, coaching change and ineffective play for much of the season. But when it came right down to it, a guy that knew how to get it done, got it done for Tampa Bay, as he's done at least three or four other times this year. And it just reminded me, it's like, I don't think, as bad as they looked, that anybody in that stadium or anybody on the other sideline didn't think that Tom Brady was going to have a chance at the end.
Well, different organization, different player, like you said. You're talking about Tom Brady is one of the greats.
Yeah.
He came and it's not the first time he's done that this year, Gary. He's had two or
No, I
three other
know, but
games.
that's what teams have to really, put the bet. If you want to win, stop getting these journeyman quarterbacks. If you want to win, draft a guy and groom him, put him in position to succeed. And Pittsburgh, in a sense, showed that last night against Baltimore. And again, Baltimore, I don't know what's happened with that organization because they didn't give Lamar Jackson good tools to work with. For the Hollywood Brown leaving, that was one thing. I don't know how much of that. Well, I'm not going to get into the gossip and hearsay and all that kind of stuff, but they haven't given him tools to work with, and now he's hurt. He's out. Baltimore is still in playoff contention, but now it's Cincinnati's division to win, which I think they'll probably do tonight against Buffalo. That's a quick pick, but there's something about how teams. Again, I think that of the most important position is quarterback. Invest in a guy that you're going to stick behind, that you're going to put him in position to succeed, instead of just hoping for the best. Just hoping for the best. Some journeyman quarterbacks have gotten it done in the league. Trent Dilfer is one that comes to mind. But I'm telling you, there are good quarterbacks out there that teams are either not playing or not drafting.
Yeah, and goes back to Bryce Young. He'll be drafted. He'll probably be drafted high. Hopefully, he'll go to a team that is committed to moving forward. There are some teams right now that like Washington needs a quarterback. My Patriots, I think, need a quarterback.
See, I'm still on the Mac Train's bandwagon. I'm still a believer in him.
And Washington needs a quarterback, but they're not going to go with a rookie. They're talking today that they've already started looking at Derek Carr and trying to get him to come from the Raiders. I don't think much. See, the Commander situation, this is a whole nother story for another day, Gary. I don't want to go too far in it. They're in a I won't say unique. They're in a situation that's difficult. There's rumors that they're going to be sold. So if you're going to be sold, the old owner is really not going to make a lot of moves because he won't be there. Then when the new owner gets the team, it's going to be too late when he gets the team to make any moves. So it goes back to what I've always said about Washington. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Doesn't get any better. It just continually gets worse. And, yesterday with Carson Wentz playing, he played the whole game. And I wouldn't be surprised to find out later on that, as much as Ron Rivera wants everybody to think that his decision is Carson Wentz, I wouldn't be surprised to find out later on if that little guy sitting up in the suite in FedEx, told them to keep Carson Wentz in the game the whole time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
it is what it is.
it's yeah, it's one of those things with Washington, and you know, you all. When I say you all, I mean I'm a Washingtonian. I mean I've seen this for the basically the last 23 years now, since he's owned the team. That other than what maybe 3 or 4 years, that team has just stunk out loud. They've
Mhm.
stunk to high heaven and low heaven, and again, he's not focused on winning championships. He can say it left and right, but he's not focused on winning a championship. He's focused on making money and getting valuation out of the franchise. And it's easy in the NFL to pay a lot of money for a team and just watch that value just basically skyrocket 2 or 3 times within a few years. Whatever he sells that team for, of course, now it becomes a bargain. Excuse me. He makes out it's a windfall for him rather, because of what he paid for the team years ago. Okay, that part is obvious, but when you look at the results, when you look at how the TV contracts go up and put money in their pockets, how licensing, merchandising, all of those things, the books that we'll never ever see in any labor negotiation or any kind of financial audit, if they even bothered to do one, um, it's like you buy an NFL team, you can basically print your own money. I mean, look down in Dallas. When was the last time they won a Super Bowl? What was it, 96? And that's not a shot at John Pitt's team. That's just a sense of the Dallas Cowboys. Again, they could print their own money with Jerry Jones's face on it, because that's what kind of value they have between the team itself, the appeal, the fan base in every city in the country, and a beautiful stadium. That jacks up the value. But again, everything escalates in the NFL, and it doesn't matter how many games you win. But credit to the teams that have tried to get it done. One of which is the team up the road from me in Cincinnati.
Well, they've done a good job. They got Joe Burrow. They're playing Buffalo tonight. We'll see what happens. A lot of games have some significance next week. Dallas may be playing for the Eastern Division title next week. We'll see what happens when they play Washington.
Yeah, I never
Philadelphia.
thought I'd be saying that. Again, I know where Philadelphia is now in terms of trying to preserve Jalen Hurts for the playoffs, but yeah, again, from what I read about Gardner Minshew, that he really showed why he's a journeyman quarterback. That's I'm a little nervous for Philadelphia now, because 2 losses like that really damage your momentum. Even if you win this final game, you have to wonder, where is this team going forward, and where is Jalen Hurts' health going forward. John, before we go, again, this half hour has gone by way too fast. Um, Losing Pele, that was one that really, I mean, John, he was the definitive soccer player, football player of our generation, if not several generations, and he is no longer with us. He has passed. John, I can't even begin to sum up his legacy. Rest in peace, and thank you for the memories, because I had the pleasure of seeing him a couple of times in the old what is that, the old NASL. Remember that one?
North American Soccer League. Yep.
Yeah, and
He played
played.
for the New York Cosmos.
Yep, New York Cosmos. I remember when they played Washington Diplomats, and that was an event. I mean, that I think I was like 18, 19 years old when they came here, and that was an event. And I think about 4 or 5 players of that time. Well, I'll say 2 or 3. Pele, um, Giorgio Chinaglia, Franz Beckenbauer.
Mhm.
Those were guys that I remember, who really really stoked the interest in soccer and football in the States, for them to form a league. And you know he I mean, he's the greatest. with all due respect to Messi, he is the greatest. 3 World Cups. Nobody else has done that.
Correct. And my condolences to Paley's family. He is quite a soccer player, but also quite an ambassador for the sport of soccer.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful, wonderful player and a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah. Thank you for the memories, man. Hey, folks, there's a whole lot more sports to watch. A week from today, we'll be talking about the college football playoff championship game between Georgia and TCU. We'll be talking about the upcoming NFL playoffs. We'll be talking about college basketball. Heck, we might even work in some hockey if it's that pertinent then. And of course, we got to talk a little bit about NBA and where some teams are entering the midpoint of the season, the official midpoint of the season. So watch all the sports you can. Watch us on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your family. Happy New Year to you. We'll see you again next week.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Happy New Year to you again. Look forward to seeing you next week. Watch a lot of sports.